podcast. Shut up!
Good morning to you, wherever you are, because it is
Morning Somewhere!
for September 11th, 2024. My name is Bernie Burns, sitting right over there. She ate a dog.
Hey.
It's Ashley Burns. Hi to Ashley, everybody. You are one of those immigrants, Ashley.
It's true. I am now. So watch out for Spot. I'm gonna get him.
That was a weird moment in the debate. It is 9/11, so no drop today, everybody. 9/11, September 11th, 2024. This is the 23rd anniversary of the September 11th attacks in the U.S., where we were born and where we lived most of our lives, Ashley.
Where were you when that happened? Do you remember? I'm sure you do. I'm sure it's like one of those things that just like locked in your memory.
Very much so. So I was in Dallas, and I was in my telecom career, and I was at some telecom convention, and it was early in the morning, and I was in a hotel, one of these like, just shitty business hotels where they give you the free breakfast, and there's no TV in there, but there was a TV in the bar that was just adjacent to it. And so we were there watching on TV in the bar and was surrounded by other conference goers. And my main memory from it was when we were watching after the second tower was hit, there was then a big cloud of smoke a few minutes later. And somebody said, because everyone was dealing with information on the fly. It's interesting when you go back and you can watch all the broadcasts for television because it was the East Coast, probably by design. That's why they attacked when they attacked. Everyone was reacting on the fly. I was just watching Regis Philbin talking with his producer and Kelly Ripa on air, and they were talking about a third plane, and there was all those kinds of things. Like, you didn't know what was happening, and somebody would say something on TV, and then it would be fact for about 10 minutes, and then that would change. But there was a big cloud of smoke, and somebody goes, "Oh no, another explosion!" Somebody in the bar, and then somebody else said, "Was that another plane?" And I said, "I think the building just fell down." And everyone turned and looked at me and like, why would you say that? Like, I remember I felt like almost embarrassed for a second.
Right, that's impossible.
And yeah, exactly.
That building can't fall down.
And somebody was like, the building didn't fall down. And I said, looked like the building fell down because it was a huge, cloud of smoke. And then within minutes, it was like the building fell down. And for some reason, that was the thing that got everybody moving. Like, I was like, I need to go home because I was in Dallas, which is about a 2.5-hour drive from Austin. And the thing that my takeaway, my emotions from that day, everybody remembers the two towers and the World Trade Center's, buildings falling down. They remember that. I remember very distinctly the feeling of New York is being hit by a terrorist attack. Oh, wait, now the Pentagon got hit by a terrorist attack. There's another plane headed towards the White House. There was speculation about that, which turned out to be United Flight 93, which crashed in Pennsylvania. There was this feeling of like, oh, this is the beginning of something. Like, this is going everywhere. It's going to go all the way across the country. So what I thought at the time, I thought, I got to get home. But flights were canceled, and it didn't really make sense anyway. So we ended up hitching a ride with somebody who was at the convention. They were going down, I think, to San Antonio, and they dropped us off in Austin so I could get home. Yeah. Jordan was at the time pregnant with JD. So I was like, I just had this feeling of like, I have to get home. So...
Yeah, there's something to that. I had a very different morning.
Get a little choked up even talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a weird time. Anyone who wasn't an American who was like alive and, conscious of things happening at that time, there may be other similar events like, in your locality that have this cohesive effect, but it was one of the weirdest things. I remember waking up, I was at my boyfriend at the time's house. I was sleeping in the bed. He called me from work and let me know. And I turned on the TV and I watched this happen. It was like 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I felt numb. But then...
when you say numb, were you like, you didn't believe it or you were...
Almost like, yeah, it didn't seem real yet. It took time for it to sink in and actually feel real.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit along the lines of like, don't say the building fell down. The building can't fall down, right? It's like, that's not possible. So it's almost like your mind resisting reality for a little bit, even as it's watching reality happen.
Right.
So there was an element of that. But then I feel like it was one of those very rare times where sort of everyone in the U.S. faced the same direction.
Yes. So that we're kind of awash right now because of the debate last night, which we'll get to in a second, with different poll numbers. You know what I mean? The poll numbers for everything, like right after 9/11 or like 2 or 3 months after 9/11. I recently read a stat, which I can completely believe, that the Patriot Act was passed within 45 days of 9/11.
That really does not surprise me.
Doesn't surprise me at all. Things moved really, really quickly, and it was shocking how much. And I'm describing myself here as well, how much people started moving all in the same direction. And I look back at myself at that point in time. We're talking a lot about 9/11 right now. I don't consider myself one of these people, these never forget people. I do think you have to move on with things in life. And it's like, how much of your life are you going to spend attacking people and tearing things down in order to get justice, for lack of a better term, for something that happened to you or to your country? You know, at some point it's better to forget, if that makes sense. I mean, we don't forget Pearl Harbor, but we don't, constantly hold that against people that we meet from specific regions of the world. At least I hope not, So I do think there's a healthy thing in moving on from it. But I was kind of shocked looking back at myself. I've always been a little shocked at how quickly I went along with everybody else. But it was a very strange time. It was a really strange. It was probably the strangest time of my life.
It was weird. It was like being part of a tide.
It was like being part of a tide. And it happened. How old would I have been in that? I would have been like 25, somewhere in there. Yeah, somewhere like mid 20s, late 20s. Yeah, you were early 20s.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'd been late 20s.
And it's weird, especially in contrast to what we're seeing again with the debates last night, right? Where that everyone facing the same direction is very much not what's happening in the U.S. right now. So it kind of just throws that into contrast.
Which is interesting because we a lot of times in modern life decry the tribal politics and how there's heavy divisions between Americans. I don't know that the overwhelming patriotic unity of the post 9/11 America, I don't know that was super healthy either.
Well, let's just say that we can do a lot of damage when we're all facing the same direction.
Yeah.
Because when you're all facing the same direction, when you're in a stampede, it's really hard to stop before you run off the cliff.
It is. That's a good point. Yeah, you can't before the person in front of you runs off the cliff and you're right behind them and don't have time to stop yourself. Or there's people
behind
coming
you,
up
pushing
very
you.
quickly behind you. Yeah. But pivoting to the debate then. Last night it was, I think most of the polls I've seen that said Kamala Harris did really well. I'm going to say something right now. I'm going to make a little shift if I can. I'm going to stop referring to presidential candidate Harris as Kamala, because I've noticed that when we have female presidential candidates, we call them by their first name, but we don't say presidential candidate Joe, we don't say that kind of stuff.
Right.
Sometimes
if anyone uses his first name, it's in a nickname. They're like, oh, look, Sleepy Joe or Dark Brandon or whatever. They only use first names as part of a crack, right?
Yeah. For instance, Donald is more often, I think, referred to as the Donald, right? Even when you go to say Donald's first name, you wouldn't say Kamala versus Donald. So I'm gonna start referring to presidential candidate Harris as Harris, I think, from now on. At least using my language in the same way, in an equitable way. I know probably she refers to herself as Kamala, but I feel like that's important to me, and I don't know why.
All right, well, I say go for it. Run for it. Here's what I heard about the debate last night. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala Harris.
She did.
And called herself a crazy cat lady.
I thought that was...
She's so relatable.
I thought Taylor Swift referring to herself as a childless cat lady was pretty funny. Because these reproductive choices that are being made are not being made by old spinsters. These are young, active voters that are going to be voting on these issues. And Taylor Swift... whether or not you think she should be weighing in on politics, you cannot argue that there are a lot of people who are interested in what she's doing, and she has a lot of influence.
I agree. I also, she made some indication in her statement as well that she felt kind of forced into it because Donald Trump had previously shared AI depictions of her essentially endorsing him on his social media. She said that the easiest way to combat misinformation is truth. So here are my voting intentions.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So she basically indicated that he forced her into it.
What's the level of celebrity where you have to do that? Where you have to make an endorsement?
I think the level where a candidate uses an AI version of you to endorse them.
In this
I think
specific conversation,
yes.
that one would be a good one. Yeah. It's always, too, you always hear about, typically artists tend to be liberal. And when a Republican candidate, going all the way back to, I want to say, was it Reagan used Springsteen's Born in the USA, and he had to specifically say, I did not give them permission to use my song. You keep hearing that all the time over the years. You think there's so many conservative artists out there. You think that the Republicans at this point would learn, like, hey, let's not use somebody who's going to publicly say, I don't want them using my song. It's just an in for them to do that, you know?
Yeah, although I feel like to some degree, we're at the point now where I know there have been a lot of musical artists complaining about Trump using their music without permission at his rallies and things, that it almost feels like at this point, he or his team must like that, or at the very least, give negative shits.
No such thing as bad publicity, that kind of thing. Yeah, according to Politico, from an article from 2014, how Ronald Reagan changed Bruce Springsteen's politics. And I'm assuming this is in reference to him using one of his songs as part of his campaign rallies and things like that. That goes way back. That must go, back to 1984 would probably be the last time that he could have possibly used one of Bruce Springsteen's song in a campaign rally of any kind whatsoever. But yeah, it's interesting to me. And it's also, to be fair, you also hear too, a lot of times when a celebrity weighs in, if they differ from you, then it's always like, shut up, celebrity.
Yeah, shut up and kick the ball, or shut up and sing,
and then,
or whatever.
Yeah.
But if they're in alignment with you, you're like, yeah, speak the truth.
Yeah, go Hulk Hogan, or, go Alec Baldwin, or whoever lines up with your personal philosophy. Yeah, it's always interesting. It doesn't matter until you hear something you don't like, and then it's like, shut up, you. Play basketball over there, whatever the hell you do for a living. Shut up. Yeah. So, overall, all the poll numbers I've read said that Harris really outperformed Trump in it. But then I also read these other polls where you were reading me something where Reuters did a study with 10 undecided voters, and 6 of them came away saying, well, maybe Trump wouldn't be so bad. CNN, which I would think would skew more towards Harris's side, they did an instant poll where they said that people still believe that Trump would be better for the economy, But I do think she and her team made the right approach of just hammering away on abortion. That seemed to be the right approach. And then on an emotional level, she had this jab, which everyone seems to agree kind of set him off, and he didn't quite recover from that when she jabbed him about the size of his rallies. Like, she knew the exposed nerve to hit. So, but the polls are not, regardless of how the debate, fared, we'll see how that impacts the polls going forward. But right now, I was surprised to see how the actual voting polls seem to be less impacted by the who won the debate polls.
I think it's also a couple things are important to note. And one is that the outcome of this debate, thankfully, does feel very, very different from the outcome of the last presidential candidate debate, which was where Joe Biden faced off against Trump and came out of it. And then a few weeks later said he wasn't running because it was such a poor outcome for that particular debate. Whereas I don't feel like Kamala Harris's momentum has been dimmed by this one.
But I think the important thing is, and I was really disappointed that this question wasn't asked, who's going to buy an iPhone 16? Or more importantly, PlayStation Pro, or is which presidential candidate's going to be buying a PlayStation 5 Pro?
Yeah, let's talk about the real important issues of the day. The PS5 Pro.
By the way, we talked about so much stuff yesterday. All anybody in the comments across every platform wanted to talk about was Mass Effect.
Look,
so if you're not a video game
franchise,
if you're not a video game person who listens to this podcast, and you wonder why the hell did we talk so long about some game called Mass Effect? It's all anybody in the comments wanted to talk about.
Fucking nerds.
It was the 9/11 of yesterday's podcast. Everybody was going the exact same direction. Let's all go all in on Mass Effect. We were at like 95%.
You know what that says to me, though, is it's such a fascinatingly powerful franchise that even though the last entry, Andromeda, came out and then kind of face planted, it remains such an important trilogy to a lot of gamers.
You talk about Andromeda. I think about Starfield. Like, Starfield did not put a dent in how much people want to talk about Mass Effect. Like, I feel like if you mention Starfield, no one's going to want to talk about it. We mentioned Mass Effect for like 5 minutes yesterday. It was a constant conversation yesterday.
Constant.
People love it.
He can't get away from it.
No, yeah. And it's got a little bit of controversy to it too, but it's got the distance from the controversy. People were kind of upset about the ending. In fact, people were talking to me or mentioning my live reactions to Mass Effect 3's
Like
ending.
back in the day.
Back in the Rooster Teeth days, like we did a live like spoiler cast with our immediate reactions. I can't even remember what my immediate reactions to it were. Over time, I find those things don't matter. Those things smooth out over time, and it's like I still consider it to be a beloved franchise. Anyway, PlayStation 5.
PlayStation 5. So the PS5 Pro has officially been announced. It was widely rumored to be coming anyway, so it's not a huge surprise. What is a surprise is that it has no disk drive. It also doesn't come with the stand.
Take me back. All right, go ahead.
And it's $700.
What? Is it really?
So this is to date Sony's most expensive console.
Wow.
And it's it's of course got all the things you would expect of the Pro, sort of like half gen upgrade. It's better hardware. It's got it's going to be able to make everything prettier with more frame rates and all that stuff, which is exactly what you're asking for with a Pro version of a console. Unless you want to stand it on its side, and then it's going to cost you extra.
Right. Wow. $700. Okay.
The thing that gets me, okay.
What gets you?
This is about it being having no disk drive.
Yeah.
Now, I believe either.
Go ahead.
And this is specifically to do with PlayStation. Do you remember when they announced, I believe it was the Xbox One, and they were talking about making a diskless version, and Sony got up at one of their press conferences and made, like, they took a dig, right? And they're like, here's how you...
They fed into the criticism.
Here's how you will share games on PlayStation. And it was one executive handing another executive a disc.
Yes.
And this was important because at the time, Microsoft was trying to work out this way that you could digitally lend your games to other people, but it was going to require online check-ins for DRM and all that sort of stuff. Everyone was
How cool would
completely
that
up
have
in
been,
arms.
by the way?
It turns out that would have been freaking great.
Yeah, and now we don't have that, and now we got the no discs.
Yes, they went, okay, fine, pulled back on it. We didn't get it, and now it would be an amazing feature. We don't have it, and so that specific Sony handing the disc, as this is how easy it is to lend your games, was like such a big deal for so long, and now those motherfuckers released a discless console.
Well, it does play into that, my favorite quote from the movie The Big Short, which is...
Well, Pay, I may have been early, but I'm not wrong.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
They were just too early. Xbox was just too early. They were, was it 2013? They were trying to push for that? Stuff?
There was a lot of things, I feel like, with that announcement that actually were not far off. They were just too early. Things like...
They kind of like put their own foot in their mouth, though, because the response to it was like, you guys don't have an internet connection, or if you don't have an internet connection, move to somewhere that you have real technology or something like that.
Yeah, they had a couple like open mouth insert foot moments.
Told people they were eating pets. I don't know what that was about. That was really weird. Also ahead of its time.
But even they had their initial announcement, and it focused a lot on being like the box that does everything, so you can watch TV on it and all these things. And now, you know what I use my Xbox for like 70% of the time? Watching stuff.
Yeah, it's almost like they said the quiet part out loud and nobody wanted to hear the quiet part. I mean, I'm one of the people pushing for a full red versus blue box set. You know what I mean? It's like, but it's more of a collectible thing, you know? And my digital library has been a digital library for now well over 10 years, you know? But I do see the value in the stuff. I do. But it was clear that this was the direction this was heading all along. And I feel like we lost things along the way, like the digital lending and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think as well, there's something slightly different about games rather than collecting like DVDs or Blu-rays. And that is that you have your disc, you put it in, and now you have to download the 300 gigabyte update. Uh-huh. So even if you have the disc, it still is basically just the key.
Have you ever uninstalled a game or a product because it updates too much?
No.
I have. You really have not? There's some, maybe because I have to keep up with all the updates, I'm constantly like, I used to defrag my hard drive back in the day. Did you ever do that?
Oh, constantly. I had it on a schedule.
Right. And so I'm the same way with updates. I can't stand when something is sitting on my drive unupdated. And so I have to update it. I have literally uninstalled stuff, usually apps on my smartphone, because it's just like, you update too much. Like I don't need an update every 2 days.
Right. Or it's an app that you never use that keeps updating, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to I'll come get you when I need you.
You're kind of nagging me at this point. Yeah, for constant maintenance.
Meanwhile, that game was like, I'm ready.
Well,
I'm ready. Do you want to play? And you're like, State of Decay 2 is calling again.
Yeah, it's and there's some updates now that are like 70 gigs on a regular basis, and it just is like we're one of those people who needs to move to an area with better internet, like the Xbox executive said back in the day. But yeah, keeping up with it gets to be a pain in the ass. How is this being received? The PlayStation 5 Pro.
I don't think anything is terribly unexpected. It is funny that they're not including a stand. So it's a monster of a console, right? So
It looks smaller. I mean, but it's not. There's nothing around it when I see photos of it. It's like floating in space and rotating. So
yeah, when there's nothing around them, I assume that they're very, very big. Because they're trying to look svelte. But I assume that it's at least the size of the PS5 or slightly larger. We have to store ours vertically. Just due to space reasons.
It's a dumb shape.
And so it is a dumb shape.
It's a dumb shape.
I know it's done so there's no stacking and things like that so that it gets its airflow and et cetera, et cetera. However.
But in the interest of fairness, it's a great name. PlayStation 5 Pro, I know what that is. And when they make a PlayStation 5 Pro Slim, I'll know what that is. Xbox would have the Xbox X plus 1 Exponent 3. You know what I mean? It's like, what the fuck is this goddamn thing?
I feel like they need to work on their naming.
No shit.
This is a lesson that Nintendo learned with the Wii U.
Yeah.
So now it's Xbox's turn to learn that. I don't know what is it the Xbox Series?
Look, we're on the iPhone 16. Every now and then they throw an S or some shit in there or whatever, but we know which iPhone we're on. I got to know what Xbox we're on. I don't even know what Xbox we own. We own the Xbox One X Series X?
We have the Xbox Series X.
It's on an Xbox One X Series X? Are you sure?
No, I'm sure.
Oh, Jesus. Is there an Xbox One X Series X?
No, sweetie. No, the new generation is the Xbox Series.
It's like, Jesus, just give me a break.
I think.
We should be able to, they should just add X's. We're on the XXXX. That's what we should do. That's how Microsoft should solve
Then I'm
this
waiting
problem.
to hop on until we get to the third generation.
It's also like Microsoft doesn't seem to be able to acknowledge or solve that problem in any way. They just keep quadrupling down on it. It's just ridiculous. Well, as a primarily Xbox and PC person who doesn't play a lot of PlayStation, as a basic question, did they solve the ongoing issue with the PlayStation? Is it a giant piece of shit that sucks still?
Well, look, it has
a bunch of shitty games.
It has God of War. It's got Ghost of Tsushima. So I think it's going to do its
Whatever.
job.
I don't want to play those anyway. All right, well, what else is going on in the news?
Great news. Everyone's favorite Olympic breakdancer is now ranked number one in the world. So the Australian breakdancer Rachel Gunn, styled as Ray Gunn as a B-girl, has been ranked number one in the world.
I don't understand this. This is it's like the opposite of whatever a people's champion is. It's like the people have seen her and they're like, no. And yet this organization keeps saying, she's so fucking good at this. It's amazing.
So this is specifically the World Dance Sport Federation that has put her at the top of this plinth. She is number one. Here's the interesting
That sounds
thing.
like a discless game on Nintendo. That sounds like.
Here's the interesting thing about that, Bernie, is none of the actual Olympic medalists. That's the Japan's Amy, Lithuania's Nika, and China's 671. None of them are ranked in the top 10. What? So the measurement for this spot, for this ranking, is wildly questionable. I'm just going to say it's wildly questionable.
Here's what I think about breakdancing, right? It's just it's a new sport in the Olympics. It just needs the refinement that, say, like figure skating or gymnastics has, where you can do a routine and you can do it flawlessly, but then they go, oh, but that routine is rated at a lower difficulty. There's a refinement level of
the moves in this routine are easy, so it's not worth as many points.
And if I may, having seen most of Ray Gunn's Olympic performance, I feel like she didn't pull off any triple axel equivalent events. You know what I mean?
Where's the Lutz?
Or she left out all the Lutz. Yeah, so it feels like She's doing well at something that's not quite what anyone is expecting to see up there.
But she didn't even land a sow cow.
Not zero sow cows. She did it's like if a gymnast did the 2-footed landing at the end of the routine, it's like, wow, that was perfect. It's like, yeah, but she just walked over there and then just stood still. Like, she didn't do like 5 flips in the air and then stick that 2-footed landing. She just held her arms up and that was it, and everybody cheered. I feel like that's where we are with breakdancing right now.
If I may, I suspect also that breakdancing, being one of those sort of counter-culture sports, may not always align with the World Dance Sport Federation's rankings, and they may not send their best to the ranked competitions or whatever. It's very, like in what was that 80s movie that you were telling me about? Breakin'?
And Beat Street.
And Beat Street. Apparently, I didn't know this, but that was where was Beat Street 2 Electric Boogaloo came from?
Oh, yeah. How did you not know that?
I didn't know. I've heard Electric Boogaloo for every sequel under the world, and it's like something 2 Electric Boogaloo. I didn't know that came from Beat Street.
That was literally Electric Boogaloo, yeah. So they had Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo. So then for years after that, when anyone had like a Friday the 13th Part 2 Electric Boogaloo, people would always add the Electric Boogaloo to any
Not
sequel.
just for years. They do that now.
You think still they're doing that to this
Absolutely.
day? Okay, that's fair.
Absolutely. So, I think it's just a little bit like that. Like the best exist outside the system.
Well, I'm just looking to World Dance Federation 2K6. That's where I'm going to jump into the franchise when they finally get that little bit of refinement.
Get us our sow cows, our Lutzes, and then we'll talk.
Well, who is going to allow us to Electric Boogaloo into our Thursday tomorrow, actually?
I'd like to thank today's Boogaloos, Dan Fedinition and Daniel Louie. Thank you both for sponsoring this episode of our show at patreon.com/morningsomewhere.
All right, well, that does it for us this September 11th, 2024. We will be back to talk to you tomorrow. We hope you all will be here as well.
Bye, everybody.